about skateboarding, but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood. Crap skateboarding, crap skateboarding podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Crap Skateboarding podcast, a weekly dive into skateboarding for the average skater, hosted by me, James.
And me, Jack.
In this podcast, two distinctly average skaters will try to cover pretty much everything you might want to know about skating, from total beginners to midlife crisis shredders.
Each week, we will be discussing a range of exciting topics regarding skateboarding in these uncertain times.
And this week, Jack, our topic is...
Drum roll, please! My first year of skateboarding! Rowan edition!
Hi guys.
Hi, Rowan.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Howdy doodly. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're all right. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. It's
When?
too early on a Sunday. After this afternoon now, I can't say Sunday morning.
It is, but looking outside, it's skateboarding weather. It's for the first time in weeks.
That's skateboarding weather if ever I've seen it.
I know. When did you last go skateboarding, Rowan?
Oh God, I'm going to be slightly uncool and say I haven't skateboarded in a long time, because of obviously the lockdown and a lot of parks are shut down. They got those sort of like the big industrial fences around them to stop people using them, and I don't like skating on my own anyway.
So just a bit of context for people who are listening at the moment. Rowan is a freshly anointed skateboarder. He is a new skater and has been skating for, what would you say, like a year or so now?
Yeah, it was the end of the first UK lockdown. I'd really, because I've been skating on and off, and I mean very on and off, for years, since I was like 10. Me and my dad went up Park Street in Bristol back when they had, it's shut down since. I can't remember what the shop was called, because you got 50/50.
Was it Shark, something Shark, that
Shark
one?
Bait. The one at the top, Shark Bait. They the surf,
It was kind of nearer the top on the left as you're going up the hill. Because I know
James, that may have been before our time in Bristol, mate.
Very probably,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know
yeah.
the sound of that one.
Can't for the
I'm
life
not
of me
familiar with
remember,
that.
because you got 50/50 at the bottom of Park Street, or is that gone
It's
as
kind
well?
of midway up, isn't it?
Yeah, that's still there.
Yeah, that's still there. But yeah, it was much further. A tiny little shop. You walk in and there's like the till. That's the word I'm looking for. The till. And then all your accessories, your wheels, your trucks and stuff. And then you went downstairs and they had all these decks and completes just racked up on the walls. It was a fantastic shop, and the guy was lovely. But yeah, my dad bought it, my first enough complete, and then just started messing around. Managed to learn to ollie just about on my awful pathway back at my parents' house. It's a step above gravel. That's how bad it is. And then we did have a skate park up in Thornbury, just north of Bristol, for anyone who knows the area. Proper old, like, metal skate park. Where I went there a couple times. But the skate scene in Thornbury was either lacking or made up entirely of dickheads. So I never really sank into it.
A shout out to all of the Thornbury skaters.
Yeah.
10 years ago.
I've moved away from there now, so they'll have a difficult time finding me. But yeah, so kind of went on and off, like I said, for the next few years, and then actually ended up lending the board to someone, and then never saw it again. So,
okay.
But you're back.
But I'm back.
We pulled you back in. you've done your first year or thereabouts, first complete year skateboarding. How does it feel? Does it feel like an accomplishment?
It does, yeah. I mean, it's James can attest because he helped me buy my first board coming back to it when we came out of the first lockdown. Went off and bought some shoes. Didn't buy a helmet because helmets are for cowards. Wear helmets, please, for the love of God, wear helmets. Just went to Vicky Park in Bath. And I remember you being incredibly surprised at how comfortable I felt on the board.
Yeah, I was. I didn't anticipate you because, like I said, I wasn't aware of your sort of previous background for many years beforehand. As far as I was aware, it was just kind of you were new to it. So when you got on a board, I sort of started rolling around and immediately feeling comfortable. Whereas most people are a lot more wobbly. I was pretty impressed, must be said.
So was I. I was like, oh wow, I can stand up. But yeah, it's so I for the first month or so, maybe a little more. I was going to the skate park every day, regardless of who was there, regardless of how busy it was. I get up at because Emily, my girlfriend, gets up for work at 6 in the morning, so I'm already awake. So I'd be going to Vicky Park at 7 in the morning, skating for 3 hours, 2-3 hours, going to work for 5 hours, part-time life, then coming back to the skate park and then skating for another 2-3 hours. And it was, I really, really pushed myself into it.
Rowan, do you mind us asking how, because James and I know we're a little older, we're all friends here, but how old are you and how do you feel how does it feel coming back in at this point in your life, going into parks and things like that?
I am, how old am I? 23, 24, something like that. Completely it's gone completely. So mid to early 20s. Early to mid 20s, and the park I have the most experience of is, like I said, Vicky Park, and there's a huge age range of people. You've got kids who are pushing around on their first penny boards or their first scooters. They're knee high to a grasshopper, all the way up to there's this one bloke who has got a proper must be 10-inch wide cruiser board, who will just carve around the massive bowl in Vicky Park for 5 minutes, jump out, let someone else have their turn, and then 10 minutes later he's back in doing exactly the same loop. So you've got massive range of people there. Probably the most common is your early teens, maybe slightly younger. Got 13 to 17 is the most common, I'd say. And
do you feel like it's a welcoming atmosphere then? Going in?
Yeah. I mean, because I know James mentioned in one of your previous episodes, everyone is super welcoming, even if it doesn't feel like it. As someone who's coming in fresh to the sport, you always feel a bit I don't want to get in anyone's way. I don't want to necessarily make a fool of yourself by trying something, cocking it up, and then snapping your neck. But yeah, everyone there's been really, really kind of welcoming, or if not welcoming, just they leave you alone. They don't come up and point and laugh at you. They just let you get on and do your own thing. The only issue I've had with Vicky Park is when it is heaving, especially during that summer last year. It was heaving. And I mean, you guys know I was trying to do some slappy board slides on one of the curbs.
On a little brick curb, yeah.
On the little,
I love that curb.
I still haven't nailed it, but yeah, when I was going there before or after work and it was very busy, you'd be stood around for 10 minutes, you'd see an opening, you go, and then someone will cross in front of you, and by the time they've gotten out of the way, someone else has gone. So you're just I want to skate, but I can't.
Into this feeds back how we were talking about skate park design in the episode about types of skateboarding, is that skateboard parks that all flow into a central area have this problem. And I think there are more and more that do flow into one central area from different directions. And that varies from park, because some parks are much more streamlined. You get very distinct sections where people only go one way. And I think that's kind of a park specific problem more than anything, rather than sort of individual problem. And again, Jack and I spoke about that kind of behavior years ago. It was very much more one person followed by another person followed by another person. And that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. It is much more a free for all. But generally speaking, Rowan, the way it works is if you're bigger, just go.
Yeah, true.
You know what? It's a shame though, isn't it? Because I think it's a shame, because that etiquette is something that, as a skateboarder, I've always been really proud of. When you look at other similar sports in terms of like BMXs or scooters, if we're going to really let them into the fold, you know, I think that I was always no, absolutely not. but I was always really proud of that etiquette, and I think it's really great people coming in that we can try and foster that etiquette of looking out for each other.
There was nothing necessarily malicious about what I was talking about. It was
no.
It was potentially like a lack of knowledge about the whole skate park etiquette. People just being super psyched to try these tricks. There were some instances of people just standing around, like very clearly in the way. I remember a couple of occasions, because you'd find like big groups of friends, you know, some with scooters, some with BMXs, some with skateboards, and I'd be there looking quite obviously impatient and letting it be known subtly and not like aggressively, just like, come on, please, I'm trying to use this thing. And you know, certain people in that group would be like, guys, you are in the way, move. But again, there was nothing necessarily malicious about it. It was just the lack of awareness or knowledge of the whole skate park etiquette.
Do you remember when we were teenagers and we got my sister kicked out of the skate park with her group of friends? Because my sister and her group of friends came to Helston Skate Park in Cornwall. It used to be enclosed. It used to be attached to a cafe and fenced around. So you had to, I think you had to pay actually to get in.
Yeah, you did. You had to get a ticket.
Yeah.
And a guy go around asking you for your ticket.
That's it. And I remember my sister and her friends coming in and doing exactly what Rowan said, but you're just sitting on the ramps and having a jolly old time. And we got very annoyed. And we went and told the woman who ran the cafe that they were ruining the skate park and that they were lying around on the ramps and getting in the way, and they weren't skateboarding and they didn't even have skateboards with them, and they got kicked out.
Your own sister.
Yeah, it was a really
I actually can't remember that. I have no recollection of that. Was I doing my own thing? I can't remember.
I think you were there. You may have not been involved. I think you were involved. You were normally involved.
Possibly. Very possibly. Very probably. I was going to the country half the year. I can't remember that.
I was really proud of myself until I got home. And face up to it.
That's the problem with antagonising siblings in public, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, if she just skated, it'd be fine. Rowan.
Yeah.
Hello.
What's your proudest accomplishment of the year? So you've been skating 1 year. What are you most proud of that you've done?
Proudest accomplishment was probably when I dropped in on your mini ramp, Jack.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Think, again,
we were all there for that.
The feeling was amplified by having you two and Tom there as well. Honestly.
Yeah, but then dropping in.
Have a can of cider and there's nothing you can't do.
But I'm sure we can all attest to this. I think that dropping in for the first time, doesn't matter if it's wood or concrete, whatever it is, dropping in is scary. The first time you do it, you really build it up, and I think that's the scariest memory I have of skateboarding is dropping in for the first time.
It's a landmark achievement for every skater, isn't it? I mean, dropping in is one of the learning to ollie, dropping in, and learning to 50-50. They're all kind of key moments and landmark moments in skateboarding. And dropping in is usually the first one that people achieve. Yeah. And it's also most intimidating because it's the first time that you're standing on a fairly substantial, even if it's a mini ramp at that point, it's a fairly substantial piece of equipment. And it's certainly not something that you can call back on any previous experience in any other sport, because it's such a unique feeling, a unique sensation, unique skill set, and it is very intimidating to begin with. And that was a brilliant session, because from what I recall, it was sort of a really sunny evening. We'd all had a couple of ciders, music was playing, we were all there, and we just covered Rowan in pats and repeatedly said to him that you cannot lean too far forwards, which I think we proved wrong, didn't we?
and then I did, and shoulder charged the other side of the ramp. I'm pretty sure, my first words after that happened was like, "Can't lean too far forward, James. Are you sure?" But no, it was so much fun, and it is something I look forward to doing again. But yeah, in terms of like the intimidation factor, it's, you look at a mini ramp and go, it's not that high, 3-4 foot, that's fine. I'm much taller than 3-4 foot. And then you get up there and you realise how much taller than 3-4 foot you actually are, and it's the 4 foot plus the 6 foot that you are is, and then you're looking down, you're like, oh, I'm not sure about this. But this has been said a million and one times by every skateboarder in the world ever. The only way you're going to learn how to drop in is just do it. Just get it done. You're going to fall over. I stacked it multiple times.
I think this is where it's great to have your friends around too, Rowan. You mentioned earlier about actually it's hard to motivate yourself. For a lot of people, I'm similar. Without your friends there, your friends are they are your motivation. And I think it's so easy. If you were doing that by yourself, you'd either not try, most likely, or you'd fall off and then stop because no one's looking. Whereas I think having people egging you on and everyone wants to see you do it. James and I have spoken about this event on the show before.
I listened to it, actually.
We were just so excited, and actually when you did it, we all felt like we did it with you. As silly as that sounds, it was a collective achievement.
Vicarious, living through it,
Absolutely.
Particularly
when you fall off a lot. Sometimes if you fall off a lot and you're by yourself, it's very easy to go, okay, I'm done. But actually when you've got people who are seeing, it's much easier for other people to see how close you are to something than yourself sometimes. So you are trying a trick, and sometimes it takes a couple of people to go, actually, you're really close to that. Just move this foot a bit there, or try this, or do this ever so slight adjustment, and that's what drives you to push it, to land it.
It was probably a bit more difficult because of the sheer jank that your ramp has. It is janky as hell, but I love it.
Worst bail, Rowan?
It was probably the one that hurt the most. Well, I mean, that's what the worst bail is. Was again in Vicky Park, they've got that massive 2-level bowl. So
was James involved?
Not this time.
In my experience, whenever I fuck myself up, it's normally James who's pushing me.
No, it wasn't. Funnily enough, but again, for anyone who knows Vicky Park, you've got this. What is it? 6 foot. And then 12 foot, roughly.
Yeah, there's a 6 foot mini, and then there's a 12 foot vert. And
and
it feeds into each other.
Yeah. So because it's concrete park, Vicky Park, so riding it is lovely. It is buttery smooth. So I was just dicking around in the bowl, and I was going from the 6 foot bit, not dropping in or anything because no. Just going from one side down the little kind of embankment into the big 12 foot, up one side, just back down. I just do that repeatedly because I like, it felt really smooth. It was fun going fast, basically.
Carving, basically.
A little bit with less skill. So I, board down, pushed off. I'm like, oh, this is some good speed. Went down the little ramp, up the 12 foot vert, and then I felt the board go out from underneath me. And you always have, regardless of what happens, whatever you bail on in skateboarding, you always have that split second of, oh.
Yes.
and then, I felt the board go out from underneath me. I'm just like, oh, and then hit the side of the ramp, and then roll down it. There were a couple of guys who were using the bowl before me that were kind of playing around on the mini ramp just next to the bowl. They obviously saw me, heard me, and as I was lying on the ground, body mangled, I just hear a, "You all right?" Yeah. I was fine, you know, no cuts, no scrapes, no bruises. It was just the impact of landing on concrete. It just knocked the wind out of me for a second. So nothing like super heavy.
Yeah, the joy of a concrete park like that, I think. I mean, concrete hurts, of course.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's buttery smooth. So you're going to feel the impact, but you won't feel the gravel. You know, you won't feel the friction as much. And so there's that, if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, no, it's a concrete parks are very much a double-edged sword. Like after it happened, you're like, I'm gonna mess with these guys. I'm like, guys, I landed something in the bowl, and you guys are like, oh my god, what did you do? What did you do? It's like I landed my body on the concrete. Fucking hurt.
you did come across as very proud of that, and you know, my first heavy slam, again, another milestone in skateboarding. My first heavy slam.
Very true.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely.
My first heavy slam was back in Helston, going down the roll in the corner, and I got really bad speed wobble. When you get really bad speed wobble, and you catch a wheel and you just go, and I went down hard, and I was lying on the ground, and my mate Mike comes up to me. He goes, "You all right?" And I was like, "Mate, I need an ice cream. Can you get me a Magnum?" He goes off. I'm lying on the floor, trying to figure out what the hell has just happened, in quite a lot of pain. Mike comes back with an ice cream, and I leave it for a few days. I find out about a week later that I'd broken my wrist.
Oh,
so I walk around with a broken wrist.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That was awful.
That was the first big slam I had. Do you remember your first big slam, Jack?
I'm trying to remember which came. I can remember two. I can't remember which came first. So one of them was in Penzance. It was a street spot. It was there used to be a Jewson's Builders Yard, and next to the Jewson's Builders Yard there was a kind of lots of paving slabs elevated with a little two set of stairs, and it had a really sketchy landing, like gravelly landing. Not a lot. Really,
it was a two set with a gap, wasn't it? It was a two set.
Yeah, there was
like
a little gap at the bottom where it was gravel, and then onto paving slabs. It's still there. I'd love to skate that again one day. Actually, I really love that spot. It's just a little. I love it. Yeah. And but there's bollards on one side of you. So you've got really like big concrete bollards. You've got very little space to land. You've got to aim quite well, I think. And we used to love it then. We used to do a lot, and I used to love doing. They were much bigger back in the day, but I used to do, pop shove-its instead of ollies most of the time because I could just do them higher and bigger. And I used to. That was one of my go-to. Jumping down that two set, doing a pop shove-it. And I remember I was almost cocky because I could just do that. That was something I could just pull out the bag. And one day I didn't, and I remember I landed the board sort of horizontal rather than facing forward. So I landed on it, and I came down, and I went into the bollard and winded myself on the concrete bollard. And that was, I think you were there. That was terrible.
I was definitely there. That was really bad. I remember that. You could barely speak.
Yeah,
couldn't breathe.
There was another time and it was a really stupid one, where I was riding the Mini at Helston Skate Park, the metal Mini, and I wasn't really even doing a trick as such. I just kind of tried to pop out the top of the Mini and grab my board, and my little finger got stuck in the gap in my truck, and we didn't really know what to do, so I just, after leaving it for a long time, I just yanked it out, and I broke the bone in my finger and snapped the tendon. And I had to have like a splint and like a mini cast on my finger for a long time. Yeah.
So you're all sort of very new to the skating culture and the equipment. What did you look for when you were getting your board? How did you go about choosing your board?
That's a very good question. I mean, obviously, I knew that if you're buying a board for the first time, get it from a skate shop. Like that, first and foremost, get it from a skate shop because they'll stock decent things. Even if it's cheap, it'll still do the job.
Be usable,
don't get something from Amazon where it's just. I mean, obviously, skateboards and laminate wood anyway. But it's the trucks will be plastic, the bearings will be shit. It won't
shaped
turn.
Object.
Yeah, it will be a skateboard shaped object and no more. So definitely go to a skate shop, be that your local indie one, or preferably shop at your local, always. But if that's not an option, we went to Route 1.
That is our local, to be fair.
It is a local, yeah.
It is our local.
But it's not independent. But it's independent skate shops, I think, are quite rare in the UK. I might be wrong. I might be talking out the arse.
They're there.
They're maybe on the decline. But I feel like most towns and cities will have.
Yeah, Bristol's got a few, 50-50.
Yeah,
Bristol,
true.
Prime in Plymouth. There's that little skate shop in St George. That's opposite St George Park.
Yeah. He's a lovely fella in there.
Yeah, if you look around, there's quite a few.
Yeah,
I'm surprised. I've got to say, I'm surprised that Bath doesn't have one, especially when you've got Vicky Park right there. That seems like a really
thing. Route 1 was an independent shop in Bath to begin with.
Oh, really?
True.
Yeah, Route 1 is Bath's local skate shop. So even though it expanded nationally and became a huge online store, initially it was Bath's local independent skate shop.
How much did I spend on mine? 50 quid?
55 quid, 50 quid.
50, I think it was like 49.50 or something, and that was just for your bog standard shop brand skateboard. You got your Route 1 deck, your wheels, your bearings, trucks, hardware, all of that. And it's admittedly, I'm fairly new to the whole thing, so I don't know what the super top end equipment can feel like, but it does the job. It rolls perfectly well. You can turn it. Feels good.
Depending on what deck you want, most branded decks are about 50 quid, unless you're looking at sales, in which case, or British brands, in which case they're a bit cheaper. But certainly if you're looking at the big American brands, they're usually about 50 quid or so.
Yeah, my recommendation is don't go British. There's loads of solid British brands. Support them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what's your biggest hurdle that you've managed to overcome?
It'll probably be the same for a lot of people, but managing to get some form of an ollie going. Because even though it's an incredibly frustrating thing, and I imagine it's the reason a lot of people pick up the sport and then within a month or two they give up because it's
hard.
It's hard. It's really hard. It doesn't make sense. It's stupid. What was Rodney Mullen thinking? Honestly.
Yeah. It's the thing people always ask you, isn't it? I find like as a skater, when non-skaters are talking about it, so often they've said, "Well, but how does it stick to your feet?" It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense when you get down to the nitty gritty. You go, well, of course, that's like it's an illusion. They're not really
just
jumping,
bouncing off the ground.
Yeah, exactly. But what was it that made you be able to do that then? Do you remember? Was there any bit of advice, or was there anything you saw like that got you to that point?
There were bits and pieces of advice from yourselves. The occasional person at the skate park. YouTube tutorials. YouTube is I think you've mentioned before, James. YouTube is an invaluable tool at the moment. Especially
something we didn't have, I
suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously you've got all these. I mean, I know Braille. They've got an entire channel dedicated to. I think it's an entire channel dedicated to how to do these tricks, and they go through. It's like 15-minute videos. And Aaron Kyra's there with his shoes on his hands, like, you've got to do this and then do this. And so YouTube is incredibly helpful, but sheer bloody determination, I think, is the only way that you're actually going to do it. And same with dropping in. You could watch
Yeah.
every tutorial in the world. You could analyze everything to the nth degree. But if you don't just get on your board and do it, it ain't gonna happen. You're gonna learn how to ollie overnight.
Yeah, I remember.
Admittedly, I did watch. I think it was Corridor Digital. One of the guys, the guys who do the special effects.
Yeah.
One of those guys had a learning to kickflip in 48 hours.
I think I've seen that video.
And he did it.
Yeah, he did.
Nice.
Bloody mindedness.
Yeah, it's just sheer force of will. Is how you.
I remember the advice that our friend Mikey P gave to me that helped me learn to ollie when I just couldn't understand it. And he just said, he said, pretend you're a gorilla. And you won't be able to tell this, I'll edit this out on the actual podcast, but just so you understand what I'm getting at, he said, if you imagine you're a gorilla and you're going like this, and that's what finally in my head was like, oh, okay, yeah, I got that movement. That's what I got to do. Yeah. And to this day, I look like a gorilla when I ollie.
That is arguably the best piece of advice I've ever seen.
Thanks, Mike.
What I see a lot of people doing, you see a lot of people online posting videos on Facebook groups and things saying, I'm trying to ollie, where am I going wrong? And 99% of those people, the only thing they're doing wrong is they're not bringing their back foot up. When you ollie, you smack your tail down onto the ground. That tail needs to then come back up into the air. And if your foot is in the way, it's not going to come back in the air. You have to bring both your knees. You have to bring your back. A lot of people are perfectly good at bringing their front foot up the grip, bring their front foot up. And where a lot of people go wrong is bringing their back foot up alongside it. So really trying to tuck both of your knees into your chest as you come up allows that space for the board to come up. I think that's probably the best bit of advice I've seen anyone give.
Yeah,
as the back foot, and that gorilla motion forces you to bring your back foot up in time with your front foot coming up as well. I think that's why it works so well.
Absolutely. Rowan, what sucks about skateboarding? You're new to it. What's everything? Skateboarding sucks, man.
Skateboarding stupid. Podcast over. Cancel it.
Yeah. But objectively, James and I have said it, it's a dumb thing to do in some respects. But I mean, what about it? So coming in fresh, baby faced, you've had a year doing it, a lot more. What about it, if anything? You can love it as much as you like. Is there something about it that just sucks?
I think I'm going to speak carefully here. There's I think you've mentioned it before. I think the first thing that you might notice is the perceived elitism. And when I say that, it's how you think other people are reacting to you as a new skateboarder. We mentioned it earlier. You think you're rolling around. You might not be that comfortable on your board, and you feel as if everyone's watching you and pointing and laughing. Now that obviously isn't the case. I think then the next thing is it's not common by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it is there is then an actual level of elitism.
It's there, man.
A certain level of gatekeeping, a certain level of you can't do this in that way, you can't do this in another way. I think a prime example is, and I can hear the skateboarder screaming at me, is ball grabbing. Grabbing your skateboard by the truck and carrying it like that.
Yeah. Why does that matter?
I know where it came from. I know where it came from was the people when skateboarding was kind of first kicking off, or had made a resurgence, I should say. People that bought a skateboard and would just stand around at the local shopping mall, as the Americans would call it, and and they would hold their skateboard by the trucks. Because it's the easiest way to hold a skateboard.
Yeah.
That's why they do it.
I bet there's a lot of skateboarders with really fucked up grip tape thumbs who could really benefit from carrying this skateboard by the truck.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know.
Yeah. Do you know what though? It's not. It's good for you to say that, Rowan, because I think that. I mean, two things. Like you've said about the perceived notion of people looking at you, and I think it's important to address that. Like, increasingly, that is of course getting better, and it's a lot of the time it's in your head.
Yeah.
But it's fair to acknowledge that that does exist, like it does in any hobby. It does. It is there. Not everybody. One thing I would say is that when I was a kid, I used to think that a lot more about kids in the skate park who were a bit better than me, and I thought were obviously I say I looked up to them, but I maybe envied them a bit. They'd been doing it a bit longer, and they would say these things and do these things. I'd say as an adult doing it, that the only people who would probably do that or have that outlook, sorry kids, but would probably be children that were my age when I worried about that. I think that the adult scene is generally, again, it might exist, but I think it's generally a lot more passive and supportive. And I'm sure maybe the teenage scene is too, but I think that that's like everything that you do when you're younger. I think everything is, you know, this is the right way. I'm one of these people. You don't do this, you don't do that. I think people are a lot more in their boxes when they're young. So, you know, and it's at the time, you know, like, again, not to judge, but the only time I've had it once in my adult life, so say in the last 10 years at a skate park, where anyone said anything to me about skateboarding, like a negative thing. And it was some kid, he was like 12 or 13, pointing out that I was pushing Mongo. But I was pushing Mongo while I was board sliding down a rail. And he was telling me I was pushing Mongo while he couldn't stand on his fucking board. And like, I think that there's an element of that. Some of it's just juvenile behavior, you know, and I think you just gotta, you know, don't worry about it.
I'm slightly annoyed because you beat me to the Mongo jokes. I was going to start laughing at you for pushing Mongo. But even then, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You know, push your skateboard with your fucking hands. You know, like, just have fun.
There's
literally just have fun.
Are you going to mention the guy, James? The guy?
Go on. I'm going to mention the guy. Yeah, that incredible skateboarder who doesn't have any. He does. He's had his limbs. I don't know if he was born without them or if his legs amputated. But he skates and pushes, sitting on his board with his hands, and he does like kickflip, backslide, lip slides on rails. With his hands. Sitting on his board.
I saw he learned to frontside flip into a board slide the other day. Yeah, unbelievable.
It is unreal.
Do you know what's fun? Like, we say these ridiculous opinions, James. I've been looking at our anchor to see where people are listening. And people are listening to our shitty opinions in the United Arab Emirates.
Yes,
I saw that.
In Singapore.
We've gone worldwide, lads.
Global. People are listening to our bullshit the world over. That's great.
On that bombshell, guys, I think I might have to call it a day, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm going to go have a barbecue in the garden.
Oh, beautiful. I might go do the same, actually.
I'm going to D&D.
Yeah, you fucking traitor. Yeah.
If you love skateboarding but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood, Crap Skateboarders.